Okay. I'm going to start, and I'm sure he'll get it. Okay, welcome everyone to the July 7th meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission, July 7th of 2020. And let's see, first thing on the agenda, any adjustments or additions, removals. I have one adjustment where it says under new business that I don't think that, I think we're just going to focus on the Unified Development Regulations tonight and see how that goes, and try and then just work on the move to the plan next meeting. So I assume everyone got my email I sent out last week, kind of explaining the timeline. And well, why don't we just first, let's go to the minutes first. Do we have, we need to review and approve the minutes of 6/16. So does anyone have any comments or questions on those? And I didn't send them out, but Bill did. Does someone want to maybe text Tom and just see if he's having trouble, actually, or email him? I guess I could do that. Anything on the minutes? No? So does someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion that the minutes be approved.
Oh, okay. Second?
Second.
And you're taking minutes, right, Bill?
I am.
Okay.
Was that minutes for 6/16?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to give Tom a quick email, okay?
You can send him a chat.
Oh, yeah. I'm really sick of this. Sorry. Chat. Well, someone else could do that too, Tom.
I'm sending him something now.
Okay.
Kevin, are you on your porch?
I am.
That looks great.
Because it is going to be great until the bugs come out. So
Yes, that's true.
He's got a different computer because it usually says Tom Wallace on it, I think, or Claire. It says Wallace user. Okay. So, okay, the minutes are approved. And administrative matters, approval process and timeline. So I sent everyone out the timelines, and well, does anyone have any questions about that? I'm not going to restate what I said in the email. You know, we have what we have, and so the thinking was that we need, you know, we can get the Unified Development Regs done on the ballot for November. That's great, but we have to, you know, we have to do it. But I want, you know, we all have to be in agreement, and then we'll just, you know, push to get the plan. So there's just a lot of, with the regs have, the development regs have a shorter period of time you need for warning and approval, and based on the statutes, and the plan is just longer. So that's just what it is. And I should have been more up on that, and I wasn't, but it is a group. It's not just me. So any comments on that?
I've got a question. The timeline for the plan looks like it was set up to go to a November vote, is that?
The
We're
plan,
not gonna do that, right?
the plan is set up, the timeline I sent you for the plan would be for town meeting day.
Be when?
Town meeting day.
Mhm.
Well, that's my understanding, but that's not the way I read it, so that's maybe not accurate then.
Well, I sent you two timelines. Can anyone have a
One for the
comment?
plan has the first public hearing of the select board in end of October, and then end of November is the second public hearing for the select board on that. So that puts it in line with getting ready for February, or town meeting day, rather.
Basically, the last public hearing, the second select board public hearing would be the 23rd of November.
So one question got posed to me yesterday morning was by one of the Conservation Commission members. And they were wondering if we were going to send the plan out to them, Energy Committee, any of the other boards or commissions in town for review. And I was like, oh, I believe so. And then I looked at the timeline and I didn't see any factor in to do that with the plan.
Well, it's not written on there, but we can do it the same time we send it to the select board or same time after we notice the first hearing. I mean, after we can send it before our first hearing, the planning commission's first hearing. I mean, we need, after we approve or decide to move the plan forward, we have to send it to all the abutting towns, and we can just send it, you can share it with other boards at that time. Does that answer?
I wasn't sure if you wanted to send it out before that, so if there were changes that, let's say, the Conservation Commission recommended that you wanted to incorporate before you warned your final hearing, you might want to do that before you send it out to the other towns.
Well, that would just push it back more. I mean, it's not a fine. I mean, it has 3 public hearings. We can make changes. There's ability to make some changes, and actually, a couple members on the Conservation Commission have seen the plan already. The Energy Commission has seen some of the plan. Let's start with them.
I gave one of the Conservation Commission members the 2 sections that he was interested in yesterday, and he saw them for the first time.
We'll have him get in touch with somebody. You know, I don't know how to answer your question.
What's our deadline for changes? What's the final date we can make changes to this before it needs to be basically sealed and ready to be voted on? Is it before it goes to the select board?
Well, the select board can make changes.
They can, but I don't think we can be changing it while they're having their public hearings and reviewing it.
No, we can't do it during the 15 days prior to their meeting. But the timeline's pretty complicated. I actually posted this out for the, well, that's the plan. So I think I'd really like to focus on the bylaws tonight. So, and then maybe I can send everybody out the state statutes on, how it outlines a plan approval. I will check in on other commissions, but we're not there yet with the plan, so we can share any of that information with other members now. I mean, now's the time.
I guess the thing I'm scratching my head about is the select board has to have their conduct their second public hearing in November to put it on the ballot for March.
There's,
It gives us a little time, because we may have to come back. We had a meeting with Valerie and Chris and Adam Luigi and Michelle Purley from the select board to make sure that this would work with our two boards. And she supported and agreed to this timeline for the plan. So that.
Yeah, because if you get much later into it with the select board, that's right around when budget season starts. And once you hit November, they're done.
Yeah, so that if we miss that, then we're into Christmas, and then we're into the end of January, and then it's too late. So, we may be able to, if something happens during the first select board hearing that makes it, I don't know if it comes back to us or we have to change it. I don't know how the regs worked last time. I know it did have to come back, didn't it, Chris? We had to take something out with the zoning regs. So then but that was regs, so it's less of a warning time. So it's still tight though, because the periods of time for the, to warn for the plan are 30 days, as opposed to with the regs, it's 15 for the planning commission and then 30 for the select board, or maybe 15. But anyways, I spent a lot of time on this timeline and went over it several times, and I'm pretty confident that it's correct. So, I mean, it might be off like a teeny bit, but it's, a lot of people reviewed it and we had a lot of discussions about it. So, I feel pretty confident. I feel very confident that it is correct. I don't have that one in front of me right. Well, I can bring it up, but how about if we move forward, if everyone's all right with this, on the regs and go through questions on that and see where we get, and then we can possibly get that out of the way and move forward, and then we can figure out the details of the plan. Is that all right with everybody? Okay.
Like Tom is trying to sign on with his phone now.
Yeah.
He didn't answer my chat.
No. Well, he's on mute. He hasn't called me or texted me. Okay, so did everybody get, Adam put a memo together. Did everybody get that I just got today? Did everybody get that? And I sent it out.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it summarizes the changes that were made in the Unified Development Regs, which is, this is required by statutes as well to submit with the document when you move it forward through the hearing or adopt it.
So Katie, do you want us to go through to the memorandum that you sent? The memorandum that you sent out, or the actual rewrite?
Well, I just wanted to make sure if everyone got it. Yeah, did everybody get it? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like not. I feel like you can't hear me or something. It's just quiet. So that's good. Want to know if there's any, if everyone saw the green highlighted items, and do people have concerns, or what are the concerns? Do you want to go through those? I mean, I don't really have, basically I want to find out, are there issues here that we need to discuss? Are there things that we need to change? We went through the bulk of it, and people, the board seemed to be happy with it, with the exception of some, there were, we had discussions about possibly looking at housing issues, but that's not that wasn't in the scope of work right now. We can always come back and look at very specific items, where, maybe with the consultant, maybe not, or just work on it. I mean, that's what the Planning Commission does, especially if we do go ahead and have a design review board that reviews projects, and the Planning Commission is just specifically writing plans and zoning. So I guess I want to hear from board, because I am just one member of the board, how you want to proceed. Anyone have any suggestions or questions?
Well, the memo says we approved the plan on July 7th, so.
Well, this
the
is
plan, we completed our work revising the UDR, so.
okay. This is
I
a
guess first we have
draft
to
memo.
decide if we
All right.
have in fact completed the work.
No, we haven't. Okay, this is a draft memo.
This is a draft, okay.
This isn't going anywhere. I guess it should have said draft
Okay.
on it. That's
Well,
sorry for what.
I would say, Jeff, that there's been modifications past our approval, so it is probably right to have a little bit of discussion about what's been changed.
Well, as I said in my email, I took our discussions from May 19th and I made some suggestions, and I think I pretty much outlined them. I sent them to you, Chris. They're in green in the document. And that's what I was hoping. And they were based on Chris's suggestions that we talked generally about.
But we never decided anything.
We didn't
with
decide
regard
anything.
to this plan.
That's why I'm not trying to like sneak anything by. I'm trying to just, we can take them out if you want, okay? They're in there as edits to review or look at. It's not elaborate. If we don't want to do it, we don't do it.
I mean, I'll cut to the chase. I don't have a lot of problems. I've got just a couple notes, and they're just tactical things that I think we need to talk about, but it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes personally.
What pages are you referring to, Kevin?
Well, for starters, I see all sorts of need for a spell check through the table of contents, which I'm assuming somebody will do. But on page 63,
Hang on.
section 604, campgrounds.
Hang on a minute. Let's give us a chance to get there.
Okay.
What section is that?
604, item 5.
604?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So my recollection is that item 5 you had to have a water source within 100 feet, and we agreed that you just needed to have access to one. But if I read this thing, it can be construed that you need to approve water supply at each campsite, which I don't recall being our intent.
I agree with you. I thought it was 100 feet also.
No, it was 100 feet. We took that out, and my recollection was you just need to have access. And then this here, as it reads, as 5 is written in this draft, in my opinion, it can be construed that you need a water supply at each campsite, which I don't recall being our intent. I think it was just to have access to.
Right.
Kevin, I think if you had the word shall have and the word access to a water supply, that might resolve your concern.
I think that's all I'm at. That's all I'm raising.
So shall have access to a water supply.
Yeah.
Okay.
if everybody's in agreement to that, that was my recollection of what we had decided.
So are you gonna change that, Rob? You changed it, good.
Yes, I will try to keep up with these changes as we go through and send the document off to somebody.
Thank you. You can send it to me and Bill.
So then the other thing is on page 69, section 610.
Okay,
Paragraph 5. So if you go down a little bit further, paragraph 5, item 1, definitions contained in Article 11. So again, one of my pet peeves is we got an acronym in there without defining it, even though it is vaguely defined in the definitions.
Sure.
So our RAP is, what is it, rural agricultural practices or something or other?
Weird agricultural practices.
Let's just write it out.
can you highlight that, Rob? I'm kind of lost here.
He is. Who's highlighting it?
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, we should write it out and define the acronym.
All right, so what should that be?
Okay.
Acquired agricultural practices.
And then you can put the acronym in parens after it if you want.
Yeah. I've got that.
Well, Kevin, you don't want to define that right there because it's actually defined lower.
It's defined in the definitions but the
Yeah.
acronym's not clear. So
Okay,
rather than chase down what the acronym is, it's just a convenience to have it there.
okay.
That's the extent of my comments.
Any other sections we wanted to take a look at?
Oh, there's Tom. Hi, Tom.
Yeah, I'm tardy. Sorry about that.
Okay. So I don't know, have you heard us talking, Tom?
I did had the audio, but couldn't get my pretty face on there.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're here.
Hey, I got a question. I got a question in between here. Read the memorandum there. That was interesting. I was curious who drafted that.
Okay, so I just need to make a point about that. That is a draft memorandum. That's a memorandum that I send out, but it is full. It's not going anywhere unless we obviously agree to this and it can be changed. So I had asked Adam to summarize the changes that were made, and as part of an adoption process, you need to put a memorandum together. I saw that he put the date on it, and it was an example. That's not going to go anywhere unless it's, agreed upon, and anything we change here, that will reflect it. So that was, I know, confusing to people. I didn't actually think about that, and I apologize. So, did I answer your question by saying that?
I think so. Yes, you did. I was just curious, when you had a meeting with Adam and Val and so on, everybody was in agreement there?
We were in agreement to move forward as best we can. The timeline was just longer than I had anticipated, and that's what it is.
I see Chris
so-
nodding here, so he agreed.
Yeah, and I made sure that I actually had Michelle Purley, who I didn't realize she's a liaison for the Planning Commission. So ever since I've been on the Planning Commission, I've always felt like we need to have a little more conversation between the two boards, but that was a good start. So, because I think it makes things run more smoothly. Anyways, so what we're doing is, if we can come to agreement tonight, that would be fabulous. If we can't, we can't. So that's our mission tonight. So we're in the process of commenting on any of the changes in the proposed regs. And the motion tonight can also be a motion to move it towards the Planning Commission public hearing. So, and then after that hearing, we can adopt it. And that is what actually Adam advised me on. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but that's what he said, so that we don't, there's things like, obviously things like, non-substantive changes, like, any kind of grammar, any kind of stuff like that we can change, but also other, words, things that just aren't spelled out correctly, and not, figuratively, not spelled out correctly. But okay. Any more comments?
The section that Kevin was just asking about says these are definitions that are in Article 11.
Ken,
Mine says Article 11.
I think they're moved to 11.
oh,
There is
really?
no Article 11.
Can you shoot that up, Rob?
What page?
Can you get that up?
65 at the bottom that Kevin was just talking about a minute ago.
65?
Where he was talking about the RAP rules.
Right.
It says definitions contained in Article 11 of these regulations, but we don't have an Article 11.
I didn't think we had one.
We go up to Article 10, I think.
Right. Do you see it, Rob? I don't.
Right there, it says under 1, definitions contained in Article 11 of these regulations.
Yeah.
We don't have an Article 11. The definitions are in Article 10.
Right.
And RAP is not in there, so I'm confused.
So RAP is defined in the definitions underneath. It's the trailing sentence of one of the definitions in the farm section.
Yeah, it's either farm or farming.
And it's not very well defined what the acronym is. You got to read it in the sentence.
Well, do we want to put a definition of RAP in Article 10? It's kind of redundant because we're talking about it in A, B, and C, I think, if I can read it.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but it could be, I don't see a reason to take it out of the definition, but it could be better defined what the acronym is, if that makes sense. Yeah, so underneath the farm definition, the last sentence is where it's defined, but it's not very clear. But to Jeff's point is if the numbering is wrong. I thought we had added a section, but I guess not.
Maybe we did, but it's not in here.
It's not in the table of contents either.
It's not in, yes, it's not there.
It looks like there's only, apart from the definition in that section we were just talking about, it looks like there may only be one other reference to the RAP rules. So it may not be that may not be a factor unless everybody feels we really need to restructure this definition to more clearly define it.
I think it's fairly well defined.
Yeah, it's okay. I wasn't having a problem with the definition. My only question was the numbering of the article.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's incorrect, so we should change that.
Okay.
I changed it there. I'll try to do a search and see if there's another one in there. Any other reference to Article 11.
But going to the general question, I didn't have any problem with any of the things in green that you added, but they reflected what we discussed.
Anyone else? Bill Sayre, I see you there.
Yes.
No, I don't now.
Bill's there.
I'm reading.
I sent it to you a long time ago.
I know you did. I'm running a little bit behind.
I did actually try to. I know.
You did fine. I'm
It's a
just
lot.
running behind.
All right.
Of course, I was at a commission back in May. And,
yeah, right,
Yeah, that's when I was in the hospital.
right.
My impression, though, is here that most of the changes had to do with agriculture, the definitions and districts, or is that a mistake on my part?
Say that again.
That most of the revisions were in the agricultural and farm section.
Well, there was the change of on-farm, what's the term? On-farm accessory business. And that's based on regulation that has been passed. And, well, the big, in the, other than the subdivision, other than including development review board and then how that affected the other regs. There were a few other things that got brought up. The campground, just some language there. There was something that Chris and I came across when we had the issue with, and I did notice that it is moved, the shed, for plan unit for downtown designation overlay district having more oversight. And I'm trying to remember now the last set of things that
We also added outdoor recreation to all zones, and we included business yards in the RA5 district.
What's the definition of a business yard?
Are you asking?
Yes.
You're asking that question? Well, that was one, a business yard. We can go to that.
That's that, Bill.
Yeah, so there were, I'm remembering now, the business yard.
Here, I'll read it to you right now, Bill. A business yard, site used primarily to store and maintain construction, landscaping, or similar heavy equipment and other materials and facilities customarily required by a contractor in building, landscaping, or construction-related trades or similar businesses, and where the majority of the business activity takes place off-site. May include associated office space and/or enclosed area for vehicle or equipment repair or maintenance. Does not include regular or ongoing sale of equipment.
Okay. That sounds thorough and reasonable.
And two other issues, I don't know if you heard them about, heard Chris say about the trails. So allowing trails in all regions. Is that, now I can't remember. What, go ahead.
So the issue was trails were included in the outdoor recreation definition, and we did not allow them in some of the village areas. So most of the new Bristol Trail network that's been created was a huge zoning violation. So reviewing it and for the betterment, it makes more sense to allow those as conditional uses in the previously unallowed districts.
That's just recognizing reality, is that correct?
Was it that they were prohibited or just not mentioned?
They were prohibited.
Right. So the way we do it, Bill, is, as you know, it's not listed as a use in the use. So by not being listed, it is prohibited. So yes, both.
Well, as you can imagine, that's, in my view, contrary to the entire history of Anglo-Saxon jurisprudence. That's allowed is the normal rule. You won't be surprised. That's how I feel. Second question would be, are we saying anything about whether the trail can be established without land?
I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Normally, we like to think of cooperative relationship between trail users and the people who own the land.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little suspect when a trail is established as a public use or a public right without landowner consent. And this is a very important issue that the state has attempted to deal with several times over the years, and really a compromise that most people, trail users and trail providers, can live with. That is to eliminate liability for the landowner if there's no prohibition on the establishment of a trail or any other public use of private land. But at the same time, no formal, leaving it up to the landowner and the trail user whether there be any formal agreement. Also being fairly clear that by establishing a trail does not create a public right to that trail. Do you see what I mean?
But we're not even mentioning trails. It just says it allows outdoor recreation. as
I
a-
thought you told me earlier you were mentioning trails.
Right.
So take it out.
Trails are part of the definition for outdoor recreation, and that's where the problem is set. So previously, village business, village mix, high-density residential in Bristol Pond area did not allow outdoor recreation as it was prohibited in those. So what we
Okay.
did was we added outdoor recreation as a site plan review for those 4 zones. None of the other zones and none of the rest of the no definition change occurred.
Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, trails are included in outdoor recreation in those 4 districts as site plan review.
I thought you said conditional before, but it's site plan?
I looked at it, I'm looking at it now, it's listed as site plan.
Oh, yeah, all right.
But we're neutral, and it's not our intent to establish any preemption of landowner rights by reference, direct or indirect, implicit or explicit to trails. Is that fair?
I would agree with that statement, Bill.
Which section are we on, fellas? Ladies and
We're
gentlemen.
looking at uses for outdoor recreation. So we're right now looking at the use table on page 16.
16?
Right. So we're referring to the issue of outdoor recreation not be allowed in certain zones, and that may be trails out of compliance in the Bristol Trail Network trails out of compliance. So the suggestion was made to have them have all outdoor recreation require a site plan review in those districts.
And outdoor recreation has a definition, Bill.
Right, and trail is just one of those things. And I know for these trails, they go out and get easements. I mean, it is a cooperative with the landowner. And I don't know the nature of the issue. I think they got easements, but then I don't know. They all have easements, don't they, Chris?
Oh,
I don't know, I mean, the town owns a lot of it, and I don't know
Well,
if they have for
yeah.
agreements between, I think Lathrop, it crosses Lathrop's property, and I think it crosses Harper's property. They've run into some landowners that have told them absolutely no, and that's
Right.
been, and they respected that and they moved on.
Right. That is my understanding, that it's
Adding outdoor
cooperative.
recreation doesn't really deal with those issues. That's a separate set of issues, right?
well,
What did you say?
I'll give you an example where it wouldn't be a separate issue, but first I want to say there are some who have legal agreements at one end of the spectrum. And then
We
as
lost
Chris
you.
said, okay. Can you hear me now,
Hello?
Bill? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. We lost Bill Brown, or Bill Brown lost me. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
So at one end of the spectrum, you have legal agreements. At the other end, as Chris indicated, you have an impasse and no permission given. But then you have off trails on land where there is a voluntary agreement without anything put in writing. Nothing in writing. And that's most of the trails, for example, on Hogback Mountain. Nothing in writing there. And Jeff, here's where it and all of you, it can become tricky. If you have a permit request for a trail system and it comes to a hearing, you have a whole bunch of people saying, oh, we like the trail, and you might even have the landowner saying, we have no objections, as has been the case with Hogback Mountain. That's the trail going up to the ledges as one of the trails there. And then there are minutes taken for the meeting, and minutes are memorialized. Some smart lawyer could say, we have, by rule of the Planning Commission and the force of law, a public right established in that trail. It's the example I'll give you to consider.
I don't see how that follows. We're not saying anything about trails here and who has a right to do what. We're just saying it's permitted to have a trail.
So there would, so what?
It doesn't require anyone, it doesn't require anyone to accept a trail.
So when you say there would be site,
that would apply to
review.
these items, right?
If there's site plan review, that's hearing. It's not a decision by a public body. That's the only way I could see your. If on the other hand, you do have a hearing and you do reach a conclusion, you have findings of fact and conclusions of law, arguably have established a public right. A permit. You give the impression, when you give the impression that a permit is required. And if you've gone along for 50 years with a permit, then you give the impression that one isn't required.
What's your suggestion, Bill? If we don't put it in, then all the trails that are currently, or many of the trails currently in use, are out of compliance and should be removed.
Well, I don't like the
any
premise.
trails in much of Bristol, which I don't think most people would want.
Right. What I am not liking and even not accepting, but I'm just one person, is the premise that if you don't prohibit something, that it's illegal. I think that's ridiculous. We'd have to have a zoning book that'd be several thousand pages long, and we'd still miss some things.
So is the bottom line here a liability issue that you're inferring here?
That's actually, Bill, an important question, but it's different than the one I'm raising tonight. The liability was the one through which we've reached a compromise in state law and state regulations. And we left untouched this idea of requiring a permit. And really, that's the way we should be looking at it now, requiring a permit for a trail. Because that's what you're saying if you're saying they're out of compliance.
Right. So currently, in those 4 zones only, you weren't allowed to have any outdoor recreation as defined. The rest of the zones, you could do it. Nothing changed. Honestly, Hogback Mountain didn't change with any of this. It's still, if you wanted to do a hiking trail back behind Hogback, it would be a conditional use and would have to go to the ZBA today, DRB in the future. So anytime somebody wants to put in a hiking trail, now it's very clear that it's a hiking trail and not a log road. It's not an access point. It is a hiking trail, and its use as a hiking trail would require a hearing. The hearing and the application process would require landowner authorization, because we permit based on parcel, and the parcel owner would have to give permission for that use to occur. So if somebody wanted to run a trail across Four Hills fields out behind DBT, they would have to get permission from Four Hill Farms to do it. I couldn't just send in a permit. The landowner would have to sign off and or be involved in the process if there was a hearing. That clear things up a little bit, Bill?
Helps. The way over the years, some of those agreements is a mutual agreement, but we usually have a set of conditions on which both parties agree. Conditions are violated, which has happened. I could give you some examples with the Appalachian Trail and the Green Mountain Trail, the Long Trail, I should say, where if those conditions were violated, then the right to use the trail was extinguished. So as I'm listening.
So Bill, we're actually talking two different things here. The right to access the property is a legal issue. The right to create a hiking trail is a zoning issue. So if I give you permission to put a hiking trail across my property, and in 10 years you and I have a fallout, and I decide to put up a barrier at the end of that road, at the end of that trail, and say you can't use it anymore, you're trespassing at that point. So you and I could set up conditions that I would be legally bound to follow. From a town standpoint, it's just, is it okay to have a trail in this area? Not whether or not the legal, I think you're getting into the weeds of some of the legal ramifications that, and I'm well aware of your concerns and why you have them. I've seen A. Johnson's properties used and abused over the years. So I fully understand your concern. But I think we're comparing apples to oranges at the moment. One is, would it be okay for somebody to build a hiking trail? The other is it okay for somebody to actually walk on that trail? And those are two different issues, Bill.
The bridge between them is once you have a permit. The way I think we accomplish both goals is to have it in the permit that if the group of individuals who are creating the trail lose their permission, then the permit also is lost by mutual agreement, and they would be memorialized in the hearing. I'll give you.
Again, the nice part is, as a landowner, if I was a landowner and Rob had a trail across my property that I gave permission to use, and he was abusing it, he was driving his four-wheeler across it when I didn't want him to, I could have that. I could go in and I could have that permit revoked as the landowner. I could ask for that permit to be evoked on that, change it back to whatever use I wanted, and then he couldn't use it as a trail. He would have to go through the process to get it approved, and I would have to be involved in that.
And technically, wouldn't you have had to apply for that permit in the first place? It was your property. So you would have had to apply for it in the first place, and then you can change it.
I look at very.
I mean, I don't know how the trail network works, but
that's one way. But I think for those of us who've made our land available for recreation purposes, including hunting and fishing, but also hiking and snowmobiles and ATVs, the trail's already there, and it's being used regularly by many, many people, hundreds of people, thousands of people. And so we've always had a very carefully defined, or I probably should say undefined, purposefully undefined relationship where we keep the land open but we never surrender our right to use the land in a lawful manner. And an experience to which Chris is referring that we've had, not in Bristol, but in other parts of the state, is people will use our logging trail for their own trail purposes. Often hiking, but all kinds of trail use. Trailers are pretty good, checking every year for permission. But hiking, after a period of time, we haven't been on the property in a while. We go back to use our property, and they say, you're logging on our trail. And their trail was our logging road. That's not right.
Now, and that becomes, again, Bill, that then turns into, as I look at it, as a property legal issue of somebody utilizing your property in an illegal manner. They're trespassing. I mean, that exact scenario, Bill, I kid you not, in Moncton, somebody just bought a parcel of land, and the neighbor just came to me and said, I heard they might log it again. I hike up there. I don't want them cutting the trees. I'm like, then you should have bought the 100 acres. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, so you can see why this is a very sensitive issue for and particularly. One last dilemma to consider.
Yeah,
When
I think, well,
in this last case where
Go
you
ahead.
have, and this applies to much of what's being contemplated for the trail network here in Bristol, it is on old logging roads. So it's not that you're establishing a new trail than one that already exists, and furthermore, it has multiple purposes. You can't really say that it's just for hiking, because more often than not, it's not. And we don't mind if people use our logging roads to hike. Perfectly happy. But what we find is when they say, we can't use our logging roads. So those are some of the issues.
well, but you could
These
make,
are all interesting issues, but this just establishes the ability to do outdoor recreation in some areas of the village. Doesn't give anyone a right to claim use of it in a specific way.
Then they don't need a permit. If that's true, they don't need a permit.
And the only reason why they need a permit is because we define hiking trails in outdoor recreation. The other option is eliminate your outdoor recreation at site plan for those 4 areas and eliminate hiking trail from your outdoor recreation definition. That would eliminate possibly Bill's concern. Or honestly, leave
have hiking trails as
yeah, I mean,
our audio is so. I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you having trouble?
yeah, I'm having some network issues.
One is frozen. Yeah.
So Bill, let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
you get a permit
Yes.
for a logging road.
No. That's exempt under state.
There you
law.
go. Okay, that was the point I wanted to make. So the logging road, but somebody wants to make it a hiking trail.
Well, they want to hike on the logging road.
They want to hike on the
No,
so is it a problem in that the hiking trail has been used for 10 years, there's been no logging, then somebody wants to log it again? What problem does that actually create other than ill will for some parties?
Well, the margins are so thin in our business. They've
I know that.
only gotten worse with the effects of the virus. There, you end up having to hire lawyers. You have delays. You have the time spent in negotiation, trying to smooth over hurt feelings. It can end up costing at a minimum several $1,000s, and sometimes much more. Plus a lot of ill will, what you mentioned, but that's quite significant. We like to think we have a pretty good reputation with the hunters and the hikers and the snowmobilers of Vermont, and we've taken many decades to cultivate that relationship. We don't like setting the stage for circumstances that would damage that relationship, and that's what happens when you create this conflict. And so,
Okay. Oh,
go ahead.
I'm going to be I hate cutting people off,
You can do it.
but I think
We've probably beaten this dead horse too many times.
I'm going to do it and see if we can figure out how we can move forward on this. I understand the issue, but it's how can we make this work? I think there's a couple of solutions where so you don't agree with the permit at all. Even the way I see a site plan permit is that you can have conditions on there. That may not solve future problems, but it is helpful. So it being a site plan, you can have conditions to the permit. It's not just flat out permitted. And the other thing is to take, suggestion that Chris made, to take out trails from outdoor recreation. Now, then you just get easements. It's not, doesn't have a use.
So the hiking and riding trails are listed under permitted uses in with hunting and everything else.
They are.
So they're listed is recreation outdoor, and its definition is a recreational use conducted primarily in the open or in partially enclosed or screened facilities. Example, athletic fields, sports courts, tracks, trails, etc. excludes shooting and motorized sports.
Yeah, and they're also listed under section 806, permitted uses, recreation uses, and that also includes archery and shooting ranges, hunting and fishing areas, and everything else. So if we make any changes, they're also listed in that section.
Okay, well, I'll think about it, see if I can come up with a compromise that we can live with.
Tonight?
Not tonight.
What?
Not tonight.
Uh-oh.
I pretty well shot my wad tonight. Most everybody agree with me, especially Bill over there and Jeff.
I wouldn't say that at all. No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I think, I think what is happening with the Bristol Trail Network is a great thing. But it is different from the type of trail. It is different, and it is not different from the type of trails we're talking about. And there's a lot of issues, and I see the problems.
I would just like to ask one question. What the way things stand now, what are the bad things that happen that are really significant, that are not just irritants, but really, really significant?
I don't know if we can really get into that. I don't particularly know. This is the history of what's happened on Bill's property is what he's referring to.
Well, Bill would know. That it's really the question to Bill.
I tell you what happens. The hikers go get the Sierra Club to hire a lawyer for them.
Yeah. And we can't afford to fight the Sierra Club.
saying you can have a trail doesn't allow someone to do any of these things. That's totally different.
Only if it requires a permit. It
You
sounds
can-
like you're coming around to my point of view that you shouldn't require, that if something is not mentioned, allowed, not prohibited.
You can hire a lawyer and stir the dirt wherever you want, and it still
That's right.
costs the other person money to defend it.
Yeah,
Well,
And
then they
that's-
get
Even if
back
it's-
to the idea of a permit.
Well-
That's very restrictive, very clear. It's
Well, that-
dated.
They never are. We've had better luck negotiating with neighbors and clubs and individuals and groups of individuals, one-on-one, informally, without getting lawyers involved and without permit processes. We've had
So,
with that.
so why don't we leave it at that?
Well, that was my initial feeling. But we have to change our permit.
because the way if it is not permitted in our use, it is not allowed.
Well, if we have a list of allowed
It's
uses
either
in 5
not
areas,
allowed.
one says outdoor recreation is allowed, and the others don't have outdoor recreation listed, then logically outdoor recreation is not allowed in those areas.
Right.
And Chris's suggestion, you can remove outdoor recreation entirely, would deal with that. The question is that a useful thing to do from a zoning perspective?
Or just take out,
Or take out hiking from outdoor recreation?
I thought that's what he.
That means other outdoor recreation is still not allowed.
Anyway, you can really need any infrastructure to hike most of the time, in my mind. But that's okay. We're going to need to go back to that. But is there any? I think it was in RA2, the size of accessory buildings. And that was a recommendation that we were going to make those larger maximum size because it was too small for someone who wanted to put a greenhouse, say, or even a horse barn. I can't hear you. So does anybody have any problems with that? That got changed.
Can you just give us a page number?
I don't know where it is. So is it RA? So it's in section 2 then.
It looks like pages 26,
26.
27, because we bumped it up in RA5 as well. From
Okay.
over 1,000 to 2,000 square feet.
Yep, I got it. Yep.
Yeah, 2,000. Okay. I think that is a smart move personally. Anyone have any other issues? I mean, because
I think
it
it's
seems like
fine.
logical.
So page 29, permitted uses, site plan review, outdoor recreation. What are we going to do with that?
Well, that's one. I mean, we don't have to have a consensus. We can just decide to accept it or not, or change it. So if someone wants to make a motion, I mean, getting back to the schedule and timeline, I mean, that's an issue that we're stuck on. Are there any other issues that we're stuck on right now?
I have none.
So, Bill, just
Yeah.
as a compromise for now, because one of the discussions we had is we have to go through, after this passes, the town plan passes in March, the going through the zoning regs from top to bottom again, sort of, is your charge. At that point in time, that may be when we address the overall trail usage as a bigger issue, and maybe get into defining outdoor commonly used private property or something, and we could define it at that point in time. Would you be amenable to that?
Could we carve out this one item and let me think about it, and then I'll aim to come back with a proposal? I'm seeing unintended consequences all the way through here, and I'm trying to figure out a way where work for the trail people and work for the landowner both. In case any of you were wondering, we're working with the Trails Network all the time. And we work quietly, that's the way we usually do. But we respect their goals. But we ask them to respect our landowner rights. Almost all trail groups are willing to do so. Almost everyone in Vermont, with very few exceptions. And even then, it's only exception for a period of time. They usually come back around. So let me, yeah, go ahead.
I got a question here. I agree with your point of view, and I think there's, when it comes down to anything, it's money, and that can be very expensive if you're having to defend on some of that. From a practical sense, I think Katie's kind of worried about timeline here. How soon do you think you could come up with some kind of wording that would be acceptable to you, that we could keep this thing on track?
I would say keep it on track tonight as to what you all planned, with the exception of one item, and I'll see if I can come up with something for our next meeting. And then either we change it or we don't. But everything, the train is still moving forward.
Does that work, Katie?
Well, let me see. So ideally, we need to, well, more than ideally, we need to make a motion to move this to a public hearing. Now, we can make, if we agree to that, make a motion tonight and agree to that, we still have some time. We're moving it as a draft, and we could still let me just see. It's all about the warning, and it's even longer now for warnings because you can only warn, and we only have a paper 1 day a week, etc. So the sort of latest public hearing the Planning Commission can have is the 4th of August. And our next meeting would be the 21st. We would already have to have warned that meeting, but we could actually approve that because it's 2 weeks ahead. That actually would work, wouldn't it, Chris? So
Well,
if we all agree to something and we could just make that, propose that and discuss it and agree to that at that meeting, then that would be 15 days ahead of the public hearing. And then we couldn't make any more substantial changes. So that would be a substantial change. So I think we could do that, but we would have to already have warned our hearing. And so as long as we don't make any substantial changes, any later than 15 days before that public hearing on the 4th, and the 21st is 15 days. So we could, if we leave it as is, without that change, or not sure how we should. So I don't know, how do people feel about that?
Let me try to
Or
make.
we could, or we could have yet a third meeting this month.
Yeah, you know how to get me on that one.
Yeah,
Way to go along with that. So let me try.
it's supposed to be a short meeting.
So Bill, could you email us what you
Maybe.
think is acceptable, say sometime within the next 5 days? Is that a possibility?
It's a remote possibility.
How about 6 days?
Well,
Well, we'd like you to be in agreement because it's an important issue to you. I mean, we could go ahead and vote, but we're not going to do that. I want to hear what you say.
well, Bill, you just made me remember that God created the earth in 6 days, so I could probably get this done in 6 days.
Well, you being a God-fearing man, I'm sure you can pull it off.
Well, let me try to make it a lot simpler here tonight. Let's go ahead with, you said you designed it as site plan review, right? Which conditions? Well, that's another question I have. When we create subdivisions, the planning commission or the what's the other one now? Zoning
Design,
board?
well, design review board. No, I'm sorry, development review board.
Okay. So who's
Development.
responsible for site plan review?
It would all be the development review board. But that doesn't mean that, I mean, as part of this change, if someone wants to go on that board, we can kind of switch it up. Everyone doesn't have to stay in the planning commission. Do you see what I'm saying? But all reviews of projects will go to the DRB, development. I always say design. I'm sorry, development review board. The other thing is to think about making it conditional. I don't know if that, because that is, it's more expensive and time consuming, but it's,
I think let's
it's more
just
restrictive.
leave it, and conditionals reviewed by the planning commission.
Planning commission will no longer review
Anything?
anything. We'll just do this. Talk about stuff.
Make plans for other people's property and not have to pass judgment on it.
Exactly. So
That's,
maybe that other board.
All right.
Well, there is something to be said for having the people who pass rules and see how they affect the people to whom the rules apply. But we've already crossed that bridge, so it sounds like I'm losing on Anglo-Saxon law tonight on 2 counts. Let's stick with the site plan review. I think that creates problems, which I've enumerated tonight, and I'm kind of thinking out loud with you, brainstorming. It does create possibly an opportunity where the would have a chance to tell the other side of the story and perhaps build in some conditions that would.
Conditions are where you can clarify things, I think.
And as I think it was you, Katie, who suggested ideally, perhaps even of necessity, the landowner has to make the application.
Right.
Well, that's how it would work.
So I think that's the ultimate protection right there.
Because you can
So
always change, you can amend your permit and you're not required.
Okay.
to trail, you can change it.
So in this exercise and studying jurisprudence, you brought me around.
All right.
Okay, site plan review.
Okay.
So we don't have to wait 6 days?
No, no, not even.
All right.
On hearing that, I'd like to make a motion to move this.
Thank you, Rob. Did you actually make that motion? To move
Yeah,
it to a
I just
public
don't know how
hearing?
to finish wording it.
Okay.
Bob, my suggestion would be make a motion to accept the document as presented or as modified this evening.
I make a motion to accept the UDR document as amended this evening.
I second.
Any more discussion, dare I ask? No?
So, so can we put a date stamp or something on it so it's got a place in history?
Me tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've got this memo that
The memo
says,
does. The memo says we approved it. on July
2020.
10th.
Time to go to bed.
But what did you say,
I will
Jeff?
go to bed.
Yeah.
You what?
I have my little finger.
Oh, you did?
Mommy put something on it.
Okay,
Next one.
okay.
Come on.
Say goodnight.
Hug your face like this.
Oh, it's on my computer. Good. My,
Hot mic here, Bill.
oh.
Turn it off.
No, we're not gonna turn it off.
Over here.
Okay.
Okay.
She would like to be part of the meeting.
Time to go to bed.
Well, we could use her. I'm the only female here. I could use some more.
It is public.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, we should get a date on this. We can,
We didn't vote yet.
should we reference the memo that was sent out? Is dated?
Come on, put
I think the memo's a separate issue. I think we should put a date on this document and then approve the memo with another date.
So,
Okay,
so
Well, Jeff,
what-
Jeff brought up the point that we got to vote on this.
Yeah.
Didn't
well,
you,
we do,
Jeff?
but we have to make the
Somebody-
amendment and then we vote on the amendment. No, is that not right, Chris?
yeah, don't amend it. I mean, Kevin's is a
Not
request.
amendment, motion. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
motion. We make
So,
the,
Kevin, what we've done in the past is on the, on the title page of this, we say, approved by the planning commission on July 7th, 2020, approved by the select board on November 2020, approved by the voters, November of 2020.
and
So
that
those-
is actually on the front page of the Unified Development Regs.
Yeah,
It's on the front page.
it's on the cover usually.
Right. So, okay. Can we do the motion? Are you there?
You're frozen, Katie.
Can you make that? Did we get the motion? I'm having trouble hearing. That's why I keep asking the same
Oh,
question
wait,
over.
It's right.
It's very broken except for the little one.
Come on, it's right. Come on, Papa.
Yes, you have a motion on the table. Now you just need to ask, if there's no more discussion, go to vote.
Right. I need to see the motion or hear it again. I didn't really hear it. I just want to make sure.
The motion
Can
is to
you-
accept the document as modified on July 7th, 2020 by the Planning Commission. If there's any questions, now is the time.
Should we?
Hearing no
Did you
questions,
say?
can
the
we
Unified
now vote
Development
on this? Those in favor of
Did you write?
approving? Are we doing this or what? Jesus, my man, the man, the boat, the marikata, the
We're
man.
trying, Bill. I had to.
Technical glitches.
Ah,
Of all people.
we're all breaking up. That's the
That
problem.
motion.
Did we get most of what I said or no?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any
Yes.
questions about this motion?
No.
Can we
Nope.
vote on this motion?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor, say nay. The motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, you can lead the next meeting. I'd be glad to give you that.
No, 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 no. That ain't happened.
No? Okay, great.
Good. So the
So,
21st is the next meeting?
we got it.
21st is the next meeting. Yes? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So do we need to vote on the memo as well?
It's not going
Um,
anywhere.
Yes, it is by statute, it is required to file a memo that summarizes what the changes are. So, we haven't changed anything in the document that would affect this memo as far as that I can see. Does anyone have any problems with the memo?
Was that
we should just-
written on July 2nd?
Excuse me?
Was that written on July 2nd? The
No,
memo?
he wrote it today.
7.
He wrote it today.
7th?
7.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about it. Chris, you could probably answer this. My memory is one of the reasons we decided to include subdivision regulations was because other towns have them already. Is that correct? So I thought it would be useful to mention that in the memo, that we are not an outlier here. In that first section, inclusion of subdivision regulations, that first subpara. Some wording that would mention that this is the norm in the region.
Now, we're one of very few towns that do not have.
Do not have them.
But I think the impetus to put in those regulations was to cut the amount of red tape the contractors had to go through with Act 250, blah, blah, blah. So that was really the impetus for including that. So I don't think we need to put that in. That's my own feeling.
Sure.
There's been a lot of
Say the purpose is to cut red tape.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion for this as well? Or we
Yes.
can? Okay,
Go ahead, Katie.
well, I actually am still the chair, so I don't make the motions. So that's how we've been operating.
Kevin, do us the favor, will you please make a motion?
Wow.
Any motion.
I move to accept the letter dated July 7th explaining the changes to the Unified Development Regulations.
Is there any discussion?
Second.
Ooh, there's a,
Is there a second? Yes? Okay, second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can't vote, Chris.
Well, he can,
I was waving, like, pointing at everyone who was saying yes. I was happy.
We're not improving the typos, I assume. The typos will be cleaned up.
Typos in the memo?
Yeah.
Yeah, typo will be, and and feel free to share, you know,
Yeah, I'll send them to you.
let me know those are through. Okay, so I will go ahead and, or hey, Chris, you want to do a notice? Do you want to, or at least send me a sample and I'll write it up for, if you can find a legal notice for zoning or the last zoning. See what you have in the files, because I don't have access to that.
When do you need it
Bristol.
by?
What?
When do you need it by?
I need to get ASAP, so if you could do it tomorrow, send me what, you know, and then I'll craft it. Can't do?
I definitely cannot do it tomorrow. I've got all day training tomorrow. I could do it Friday.
Okay, well, Sharon might be able to find something in the files, would she? Be able to find a legal? Don't know.
I wouldn't dare speak for her.
Okay. I'll
Very
see what I
wise,
can do.
Christopher.
I'll see what I can do. But if you have, you know, have anything that you can send me, that'd be great. Because I need to, well, actually, it probably won't go in the paper until next week, Monday. So if you could get it to me Friday, that'd be great. Then I could get it to them. All right. So I'll communicate with them.
Send me
I'll
an
communicate.
email reminder, please.
Yep, I will. Okay. Who's gonna make the next motion?
I make a motion that we end this meeting right away, pronto,
All,
Second
even
it.
if Bill wants to continue it.
No, I second the motion.
thank you. Okay, so now this is great. Thank you, everybody. And now we gotta get the plan done. Okay.
Have a good week,
Onward.
everybody.
Yeah, you
Bye-bye.
too.
When is the next
you.
meeting?
July 21.
Okay.
21st.
Got
Yeah, 21 is 21st.
Thank
it. 2 weeks.
July 21st.
Got it.
Okay.
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 Arrivederci. Buonanotte.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Adios.